Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. This is the last birding adventure of 2025. I cannot believe 2026 is almost here. It's been a great year of birding and I'm excited for what the new year brings. On today's adventure, Jordan from Bright Eyed Birding is joining me, which is pretty awesome because the very first birding adventure of the year, we birded together. So I'm excited to be birding with him. We're doing a little bit of park hopping in Utah County in hopes of finding some finches and just some of the common backyard birds. So one more exciting thing today is I have a brand new camera body that I'm trying out. I'm really excited. I upgraded to a Sony A7V. Previously I was using the Sony A6700. Phenomenal camera too. It's very shaky handheld. And generally with any type of wildlife photography, you want to be using a tripod, but there are days like today where I just want to cruise around a park, film what I come across, and hopefully this will make the video a little more stable for you all. Bear with me though, because I'm still figuring out the settings, even though it's still the Sony system. I'm learning the new camera. There's a lot more custom buttons. I'm trying out some new things, but I'm still very pumped to be testing this out. It's hopefully going to be a cool upgrade and a very nice welcome addition to my camera bag.
Eager to put the camera through its paces, Jordan and I started exploring the first park, though we didn't end up finding a whole lot of birds, maybe because of this creature here. There was a cool deer off in the distance though, a mule deer, but we quickly moved on to the next park in hopes of getting some better looks at birds. Now the Sony A7V has awesome video capabilities, not all that different from my previous camera. The footage you're going to see throughout this video is mostly filmed at 4K 60 frames a second. I film at 60 frames a second in case I want to slow the footage down like the shot of the gull you're seeing now. This clip is slowed down to half speed just to show that motion a little bit better.
So like I mentioned in the intro, I have the Sony A7V here, and one weird feature that people seem to really love is this screen. It tilts and it comes out to articulate like a lot of other screens. Most screens are only like this on cameras, but the fact that it pops out further is kind of weirdly nice because you can put it in this orientation when you're filming birds like I just was. This is also not gonna be a full review on the camera. I probably will make one of those someday. This is just my first impressions as I'm now just getting used to it while we're out here finding some birds. They're gonna get a little bit of wildlife, a little bit of camera talk. Should be pretty fun.
As I'd expect from a camera at this price point, the footage is really crisp. I'm using the Sony 200-600 lens paired with the Sony A7V, and it's producing some fantastic results. The birds are sharp, in focus, and I'm really pleased with what it's producing.
So I just gave it a really good test case here actually. I was trying the autofocus. There's a downy woodpecker pecking at branches right there, and honestly was a little disappointed it was not grabbing its eye. Now this was a tough situation. A lot of branches, backlit, not the most ideal scenario for a camera to figure out that there's a bird there that it needs to focus on. I did flip a setting to prioritize the subject in autofocus, and then it grabbed it, and then it lost it as it moved behind some branches. So hit or miss. Pretty okay with that, but it is a tough situation and I use a camera enough that I generally flip to manual in these scenarios.
The quirks of using a new camera, even if it's a system you're familiar with, means you're going to need to dial in the settings, set up your presets, and make sure any new things you're unfamiliar with are set correctly. This was one of those cases where once I flipped that setting, I was nailing focus a lot more, even with autofocus opposed to manual focus. The spot in particular really showcased the impressive focusing system that Sony has, and I'm used to it on my old camera, but for some reason this camera just seemed better at it. They both use an AI autofocus system that's integrated into the Sony cameras, but I was seriously so impressed with how the box was locking onto the bird's eye, even with obstacles in the way, like this branch in front of the flicker, or even at a distance. It was doing a phenomenal job of locking onto the bird. Seriously, so good, and this was a huge win.
Little walking and talking segment here with some more thoughts about the camera as we've had a good amount of time hanging out at this park now. The autofocus seems to be a lot better when I flipped that setting. That downy woodpecker that I was struggling with was probably like an edge case. It was doing really well with some of those birds back there. The northern flicker, some of the American robins, it was catching the eye from a pretty good distance too, which is just awesome. That's phenomenal. Very, very happy with that. And then the thing that I'm pleased with most is the stabilization. I don't know if those 2 extra stops from my other camera make that much of a difference, or the fact that it's full frame, so maybe a bigger sensor doesn't jitter around as much, but really pleased with how much smoother it is at handheld, which is really sweet. Now, obviously, I'm just looking at the back of the viewfinder here, and I can't totally tell, so I'm hoping when I pop it up on the big screen on the computer, it still looks stable, but I'm feeling pretty good about it so far.
Now that I have had a chance to go home and edit a little bit, I will say the stabilization is better. It's not perfect though. Some of the Nikon systems I've seen, like the ones my friend used, are really impressive and outshine Sony in this regard, but this is definitely usable. All of these shots you're seeing here are shot at handheld with added post stabilization, and I'm pretty pleased with the results. Now, I was pretty close to these birds, so I didn't have to go all the way to 600 millimeters, which helps a ton, but still, these are really good results that I cannot complain about. And man, these domestic mallards are really funky and make for good test subjects, I'd say. It was fun to see them along the water's edge. I also thought this gull shot was pretty neat because you can see a ring-billed and California gull comparison right there. But now let's look at some photos, because that's another huge aspect of these cameras. These photos are converted from RAW to JPEG using Sony's software and totally unedited. This is straight out of camera. Lightroom actually wasn't updated at the time with the brand new system to be able to take in Sony photos. So this is just straight up JPEG, no denoising, no edits done. And man, I think this looks really great. I love the sharpness of this. And when I do get the chance to edit them in Lightroom, I'm excited to add some colors and play with the light a little bit. The 33 megapixel sensor, the Sony A7V, seems to be producing some awesome results. Again, this is another situation where I was seriously so impressed with the autofocus system. Like, look at all of these branches, and it still found the squirrel's eye. Really, really cool. One thing I didn't test quite enough is a 4K 120 frames a second, which allows you to slow down to 25% speed. Here's the one shot I got. I will note this crops in a little bit, but I still think it looks pretty good, though I'm eager to test it more.
So final thoughts as we're wrapping up the day on the camera. After I've figured out a few of the settings, mapped my custom buttons, I've been overall really, really pleased with the upgrade. A lot more than I expected actually, because my Sony a6700 is a really capable camera, but this outpaces it in a lot of ways. First of all, I think the photos and videos are gonna look slightly better. I hope so, at least, because it's full frame, which generally gets you better quality and better background blur, stuff like that. This also has way more custom buttons, so I was able to map a lot of settings specifically to these custom buttons. And pre-capture is a brand new feature I've never had before. Now, I'm a video creator first, photographer second, so I don't do as much photography, but I definitely want to branch out and try a little bit more now that I have this feature. So pre-capture is when you have the shutter held down or the back button autofocus held down, it'll buffer shots before you even take a picture. And you can save shots up to a second before you actually fire. So in this example, I'll show you quick, I had a duck that was preening and flapping its wings. I didn't press the shutter until I saw that action start, which was slightly after it started, but I still got photos of the whole sequence, which is really cool. This is phenomenal for birds taking off. This is amazing for birds that are diving. You can get the diving motion. There's a lot of cool things that this unlocks for my photography, which is a super neat feature.
I also am really impressed with the burst rate on this. 30 frames a second with the electronic shutter is really, really phenomenal. And they're sharp pretty much throughout this whole sequence too.
And then lastly, it was weird at first, but the eyepiece being in the center opposed to the left side, is kind of nice too. I kept finding myself trying to put it to the left side just from muscle memory, but I do really like it being in the center because I can brace the camera against my nose and my forehead a little better just to help stabilize it that much further. So yeah, I still have a lot to learn, and I'm still gonna figure out these settings over the next couple of weeks. I'm gonna have, I'm sure, a ton of fun finding birds and getting some footage of them. I will do a full review of the camera though, probably in maybe a few months or so, once I know all of the stuff confidently and I can speak to all the settings and I've really dialed in how I'm using it. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed these initial thoughts. Hope you had fun coming along with Jordan and I on this adventure. Of course, make sure to go subscribe to Jordan from Bright Eyed Birding. Link is in the description. But thank you as always for watching. See you in the next one. Happy birding.